All right, hello everyone to this Force Friday. As you know, this past month is Force February, and we are connecting Instagram and our challenges to our Force Fridays here on YouTube. This is our third challenge, so today's focus is on shape, right? So we're gonna share with you guys how do you draw with force shape? What does that mean? What are the rules, right? I would say one of the tricky things about drawing with force shape is that there are actually very, very specific rules. And if you break the rules, there's a good chance you're going to break rhythm in the body. So that's the thing we want to be really careful about. We're also going to look at the contestants today who submitted work over on the Instagram hashtag. And then we're going to pick a winner by the end of today. And what the prize will be for that winner. So we got a lot of exciting stuff going on. Just as a reminder, this only started last week. We now have, at the bottom of the live chat, right, we have something called super stickers and super chat, right? So if you want to do a shout out for somebody in the audience or to one of the instructors, you could do that with super chat. You actually then get to write down what you want to say, and it kind of like over bolds that statement, or you're able to purchase the stickers and they go right into the chat. We did a bunch of that last week, and that was, I think, a lot of fun, and it kind of just adds something to our conversation. So, and any money that makes obviously then comes towards this YouTube channel. It's going to help us buy more equipment and try to improve our sessions with you guys. So thank you very much. And, in foreshadowing here of hopefully any of that happening. All right. Okay. So drawing figures with force shapes. I love shape, I have to say. And on a small side note, to give you a little bit of backstory, I really did start to learn shape due to my time at Disney Animation. Some of you may not know this, but I was a former Disney animation artist. I worked on Lion King when I was very young. I was like 23 years old and just out of school. And the story I love sharing is I was actually working on Lion King, and I was working on some Timon drawings specifically. And I was drawing his hands one day in these in-betweens, and his hands were shaped something like this, right? His fingertips, if you look up Timon, even right now, you'll see his hands are like this, almost like butter knives, right? And for some reason, it just clicked for me. Like, it had been talked about in the studio, and we had classes that we had in the internship, but no one really described how it really worked and what it meant, the idea of like appealing design. So for me, it was this moment of this like straight to curve that led me to really exploding out into being able to draw from imagination. This thing is really what synced it up for me. Prior to that, I had a really, really tough time drawing from imagination anything I really wanted. And this simplicity of shape just allowed my brain to explode. So we'll be talking about that more today. So let's welcome our other two force instructors. How's it going, Swenley?
Yeah, excited, of course, for shape.
Yeah, so Swenley's going to lead the charge today as our shape connoisseur. I'm looking forward to you sharing with everyone your love of shape. Yeah, it's going to be good. Yeah, shape master. And how are you doing, Mrityunjay?
I'm doing good. How are you? Hi, guys.
Good. So our force connoisseur of also forceful form, we'll get to see Mrityunjay drawing force shape. I love the post you did this week, by the way, Mrityunjay. I think it was just yesterday you did one with different colored areas that was really, really beautiful. So yeah, nice job.
Oh, thanks. I'm gonna try to do the same thing today, so to explain that.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was very good. So as I was saying, today we're going to try helping you guys understand, how to draw with shape. Like, what does that actually mean? There are two Mrityunjays. That's how we get so much work done, in case you guys were wondering, as a twin brother down the corner there. Okay, so let's get to it, guys, right? We've got 2 hours today, of course, because we are in Force February. So 2 hours of fun with us, guys. I'm going to start with this. Before I even talk about force shape, I want to talk about this idea of a puzzle. How does the puzzle connect with the idea of shape? Well, to go back to sort of like art school 101 or typically freshman year of any art school, one of the things that you learn about in art school is positive and negative space, right? I remember very clearly, because this was such a profound moment, that in my freshman year, one day I walked into my drawing class and the teacher had created a giant, maybe 10-foot tall stacked pile of chairs on top of one another. And she was like, go draw the chairs, right? Which seems like a nightmare, right? Because it's just so detailed, right? It's like, how do you even start? And your brain, my brain, and I think most of the other students, your brain wants to think contextually, right? You want to think about, oh my God, I need to draw these 30 chairs intertwined within one another. So the lesson that day was positive and negative space, right? So it's the opposite in a sense. You didn't think about the chairs. You thought about this thing, right? This nameless thing in front of you. And all you're doing is training your eye to see positive, negative space, right? So we might have had something that looked more like this, right? See what I mean? And then maybe there'd be like an angle in here because maybe there's another chair that's like piled up over in there that's doing something, right? But you end up doing this kind of thing, right? So positive is the actual object, right? This is P for positive, and negative is everything around it, even the spaces inside there, you see? So that's all negative, and negative's outside as well. It's pretty important. This is a really huge, important lesson. If you're at the very beginning of learning how to draw, by the way, this is a great exercise because you get past the complication of, oh my God, I don't know how to draw a car. I don't know how to draw people, right? I don't know how to draw. It kind of takes context out and just allows your brain to just see, right? To just see. It's like, I'm not going to name the thing. I just want to see positive, negative shape. And it helps you with the beginning of shapes, right? So it's a really great way to see shapes, okay? So I would say it's step number one. Now, I say it's like a puzzle because these things, these shapes, the positive and negatives, they perfectly interact with one another, right? Like one shape fits into another. Negative shape, the negative shape I have over here, let's say I put a line over here, right, to block this out. Let's say it's the edge of a puzzle right here, right? So this, me drawing the negative shape also makes the positive shape, right? So if I do this and I make this shape and I make this shape, I'm starting to draw the edge of the chair. So this line actually creates negative and positive at the same time, right? And that's a big deal, right? You want to be aware with every line, you're not only creating the object itself, but you're creating the space around the object, okay? So huge, right? This is a very big deal, very abstract concept. And again, it allows your head to move out of the space of, I'm drawing this thing, right? Which is what, again, usually overwhelms artists into drawing, okay? Okay, so that's the first step, right? The first step is learn about positive and negative space. Is this forceful? No, it is not forceful at all. It's just pure abstraction, right? We're trying to sidestep our brain out of making things more complicated and simplifying, okay? So now that moves us to force shape. What does that mean? Well, the idea behind force shape, right? What we're trying to get out of force shape, you know, like what's the point, right? The idea of force shape is it's shapes that help support rhythm, right? These shapes themselves already have force in them, right? It's a force shape. But the end goal is really to have these force shapes connect into one another to still retain a rhythmic body. So as we know from the past, not only from Force February, but in our prior videos, you know, it's one thing to say that you have a rhythm and you're saying, well, this force over here flows into this force, right? But now we want to go beyond that. We want to try to get to the silhouette faster, right? So how do I do that, right? That's what we want to talk about. So with that in mind, before I start drawing force shapes for you, the other thing to keep in mind here is line and when I'm teaching at drawingforce.com, line is really the king, right? For almost the entire journey, right? And then all of a sudden shape comes into town, right? Well, as soon as shape finally rolls into town, this crown basically moves itself over here. Line is now a servant to shape. You're drawing with forceful lines, still force. And that's also a key thing. When you go to shape, it doesn't mean you want to all of a sudden create dead line. We still want live line, right? Live, forceful line. But those lines are in support of something bigger, right? It's a mind shift, right? What I'm trying to have you do is start thinking about the shapes that you are trying to develop while drawing with line. In fact, it gets to this place where you're not even thinking about the line. You're thinking about the shape, but you've been drawing with force line long enough to know that that's just how you draw, right? Because you're thinking about activity and energy moving from one place to another. And while you're doing that, you're developing the shape itself, right? So that's the goal, right? And this is, like I said, it's simple for me to say, but I want you to be aware, I'm aware it's not simple. Like, it's about your brain going from here to here. So when you see us draw today, be aware we are drawing with line, but we are using line to develop shapes, right? That's what's actually happening. And for someone who doesn't know this, right, who just sees any of us drawing, they're not going to be aware of that. They're just going to think, okay, well, these guys are drawing shapes, right? I mean, are drawing line drawings, but it's actually shapes that are developing them. Now, on the website, what we do is the new tool I introduce here is tone, okay? So we want to use tone to help present the concept. And what the students do at the website is then as they're developing shapes, they tone them in, right? So even if I just did this, which is a non-forceful shape, right? But let's say I draw a circle. As soon as I draw that circle, I want to tone it in. It just makes it clearer to our brain that that's a shape. Otherwise, it's a line of a circle, right? Now I actually feel like I have a shape. It almost feels more like a puzzle piece to me. Once I have the shape, you know what? I don't need to throw that much form in there, a line of information to give it form. Look at that, right? How fast I jumped from a circle to a sphere, right? That's a big jump from 2D to 3D with one curved line, right? That's pretty tremendous if you think about it. I went from total two-dimensionality to three-dimensionality with one arced line, right? I can be more specific if I put another arced line in there. Right now I have like really clear axes to give me information. The other shape I like bringing in here for this is this guy, right? So here all of a sudden I have what almost looks like a traffic sign, right? And then I tone it in. Right, so here's my shape. But shape alone is typically not enough, right? It's like usually there's some little niche of or little piece of information on the inside that you need to give us some form about the shape. Right now it's flat. What's amazing about this shape is it can actually give us three entirely different types of forms, right? It can be a two-point perspective box, right, to the left and right. It can be a 3-point perspective box top down, right, where I can see the top. Or it can be a 3-point looking up, right? It could be this as well. So pretty amazing that, you know, we can get this many different directions in space within the same shape, right? So keep that in mind. You want to have your shape, you want to see that silhouette, and you're going to need the form stuff that we talked about last week to come in there. Now, as you get more sophisticated with this, anatomy actually helps you create those forms. It's how the anatomy moves and wraps around the body within those shapes to give you really great overlapping moments and to give you structure and perspective and so on, right? Okay, so what are the shapes, right? The shapes that you're going to see us trying to dodge today, the bad shapes, right? Excuse me, the bad shapes. So bad shapes are these guys, right? Again, as soon as I draw the line, I'm really drawing a shape, so I immediately want to tone it in, okay? So that's one shape. Here's my line, right? I want to tone it in because what I really did was draw this shape, all right? And then my last one, my last shape, is this one. Okay. So these are the bad ones. These are the do nots. The reason they're not good is they're symmetrical, and fluidity is asymmetry. Okay, so these shapes all trap force in some way, right? Here, again, I want to move like this through the body. This shape just keeps things in a straight pipe. Even if I curve it like this, it's curving, but it stays only within that shape. It doesn't give me an opportunity to pull out of it at some kind of oblique angle to create rhythm into the next shape. Okay, that's the problem with this. This one basically traps force at the ends. It pushes out equally on both sides and traps it at both ends, right? So there's like nowhere to go. I always call it the sausage or the taffy wrapped candy, or from my friends in Italy, the salsicce. I just love that word. And then last but not least, this one, which I see very often when people draw necks, right? Drawing the neck, it's a double concave. So force just kind of explodes out the top and out the bottom, again, with no clear direction. It's just like a balloon exploding out the top or bottom, and the pinch is equalized on both sides. So we don't clearly asymmetrically move out the top or bottom of the shape, right? So that finally leads us to the shape we want. And the shape we want still has to come from a curve of force, okay? So I need to know, like, where's my curve of force? And this is why we save force shapes to the end. So I have this curve of force, and to be abstract, we want a straight on the other side. So we have force over here and structure over here, or curve and straight, right? And that gives me this shape. And I've called this many things over the year: the lemon slice, the letter D, right? Whatever floats your boat and makes you remember it, more importantly than anything. But you'll notice this shape, if I go to the ends of it, it pulls me out on like a diagonal, it sets me up and points me in a very clear direction into the next shape, right? So all of a sudden I can say, well, what if there's another shape over here that's like this, right? Here, let's make this even more pinchy, right? So like this. So you'll see the shape drives me into the next curve. It directs me, right? The shapes are therefore very directional, and I can get rhythmically from one place to the other purely through the shapes. And then we can add form, right? I could say, well, maybe this one's coming out towards me, and then I get over here and maybe it starts going away from me. All I did was add some very simple wrapping lines, not even as sophisticated as the sculpting that we talked about. But look, I have two force shapes that are creating one rhythm. I have form moving away and towards me. And if I wanted to add more info to this, I could overlap, right? I could say, well, this line right here, I'm going to put that in front and that behind, right? And all of a sudden now it really says this is in front and this is behind, right? So you can see, man, how powerful this is. So these shapes are super fluid. They connect into one another. And to give you a couple of other quick tricks here on this, once you have the curve of force, there's flexibility with the other side, okay, to create the silhouette. The one thing you really do not want to do, the biggest trap people fall into, is they take another curve and they put it around the same length and the same curvature on the other side. So it equalizes. This is our taffy again, right? It doesn't work. I can go shorter, okay? So I can have a curve over here. It's totally fine. This is still the king force line to create this force shape, right? In fact, there's parts of the body that have a shorter curve and a straight line, like the forearm or the calf, right? So that shape, this shape is actually fine, okay? You'll notice when we talk about torsos and we talked about, the C torso, you could actually have a long curve on one side and you can have two short curves. All right, so look, now we've got one long curve and I've got two short curves, right, with some overlap right here. It's totally fine. This guy is still driving the shape, right? It's okay. And I can push out of this. I can feel that this still really wants to go this way and this way because this guy's the boss, right, of the shape, you see? So hopefully that makes sense. That's what we're going to be showing you today, right? I'm sharing all this with you as well because this is what I was looking for in the contestants' work, right? I was looking to see who really understands these rules, who's breaking the rules or falling into the traps, whose positive and negative spaces were correct. I really wanted to see accuracy to the figure as well as much as possible, but also a sense of good shape design, right? So pretty challenging. It looks simple, but it's pretty, I have to say it's pretty challenging, and it takes time to get here because you don't want flat shapes. You want to understand that shape comes from form, which is why we save it to the end, right? It's got all this structure inside of it, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on. Force, form, shape, all coming together. Any questions in the chat before I move forward?
Not yet.
Okay, good. So these are some other drawings I put in the post. You know, I just want you to see, you know, be aware of the shapes. Look at a rib cage, right? Like straight to curve. Here I'm pushing the curve to actually an angle of straight over here. This big curve almost pushes against the top of the hips here. And then we have this curve to this curve, and this is my straight. So notice I'm flowing. No matter what, I have to keep rhythm moving, right? And you'll be able to tell, you can see here the abstractions. You'll be able to tell when it dies because it typically is a pinching off that makes it stop, right? Look at the foot. So the shape that you'll start seeing in my drawings quite a bit is this guy. I'll draw force as a curve, and then the straight might be just ever so slightly concave. So what happens is the shape is a giant arrow, basically, you'll see, right? Like this shape is an arrow, okay? Like look at it here in her foot. It's really, really obvious. Like right here, you can see it, right? And the shape of her lower leg, this is my curve. This is really the straight, you see? Over here, it's this straight to this curve. So there's another shape, right? The body, like we talked about, it's pinching out at the bottom over there. And this illustration, what it's trying to show is shape isn't only the big shapes to create the silhouette and create the positive and negative puzzle we talked about, but when you get into anatomy, there's shapes inside the body as well. So it's like those Russian wooden dolls, right? Like one shape is buried inside another shape, is buried inside another shape, is buried inside another shape, right? So there's this whole hierarchical system of shape design, okay?
There's a question in the chat, Mike.
Yeah.
Marcus is asking, is it necessarily bad to do wrong shapes, or could we use them on other types of drawing?
Yeah, great question, right? So ways back, I don't know, maybe about a year ago, we did a Force Friday on sort of appealing and non-appealing shape design, right? There's plenty of very powerful, you know, properties out there. Adventure Time is the one that always pops in my head. Like take Adventure Time. Adventure Time does not use forceful shape, right? It's almost a throwback to old animation from, let's say, the 20s or 30s, like old Disney animation, or what people call like rubber hose animation, right? Where arms and legs are drawn like this, right? Where it's like a hose, right? So it's parallel, quote unquote, bad shape. What I mean by that is it's not forceful. So you can draw with whatever kind of shape you want, Marcos. Just be aware that you may not have fluidity, right? You may not have rhythm, right? Some design is sometimes a combination of the two. Sometimes it will have forceful shape and non-forceful shape combined in the same character design. All I want you guys to be is aware, right? Like be aware of what you are trying to accomplish. And I'm showing you a tool that will allow you to accomplish well-shaped, fluidly shaped designs, right? If you want characters with fluid shape design, then this is how you do it, okay? But you can design however you want, and no judgment passed, including from me. There's plenty of artists I love who are not forceful artists, and I love their work, but I'm aware they're a non-forceful artist. I can almost create those two buckets, quite honestly. Kind of rare that someone's in the middle, I have to tell you. Usually it's like one or the other. They were just trained and taught, or their mind isn't connected to the idea of rhythm, or they don't like rhythm, right? They don't want fluidity. They like things more rigid or more abstract, you know, yes. Stronger, not fluid. There's plenty of artists out there like that in the world, like I said, whose work I love. It's not like it's only got to be forced. But if you want rhythm and fluidity, this is how you do it. And that's what we'll show you today, okay? Okay, so that's why I picked this drawing. Here's another one. Like, look at the straight versus the curve and the pulling up into the arm, right? Notice this leg, man. This leg is right on the edge. I was looking at this after I posted, and I'm like, oh man, that is almost a double convex, right? Almost apex to apex too. This apex is a little higher. This one's lower. It's really tight in here. I just barely stretch out this into a straight line on the bottom and pull the curve on the top just a little longer. I'm just barely squeaking through there. The back leg, you could see I drew probably in like a second or two. It was like a real fast throwaway of me just to say the leg's doing this, right? And I drew shapes. I went for shape because I know it's fast. And you can see the straight to curve, right? I just like tossed it right in there, right? And that is how I draw from imagination as well. Any poses you see me putting on my Instagram account, I'm drawing from forceful shape. You know, I start there and then I keep building and building the anatomy on top of that with shape design as well. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the contestants. Okay. So this was the reference, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in here. Swenley's going to draw this for you guys, so you'll see all the things we were looking for. So I'm going to leave that to him. I thought I would share with you guys some of the people that I thought did a pretty good job. If you're not in here today, it means that there were way too many traps you fell into, or your drawing was pushing more towards some other concept than the one that we were presenting. So nothing personal, it's just not fitting the challenge well, okay? So it's pretty good, you know, this is pretty good drawing in general. There's a lot of great stuff going on. Watch the trap in the arm. You see, there's the double curve, everyone, right? Let me zoom in here, right? Double curve. And yet, ironically, I could really see straight to curve here, right? You can see the straight at the top of the arm and the subtle curve on the bottom, right? The straight to curve thing, by the way, in general is not made up. We're trying to simplify. So sometimes you have to iron out some of the little bumps of anatomy to get to the core essence of what you're drawing. But I got to tell you, in this case, it really is straight to curve, right? So watch over curving things. That's happening in the forearm here too. The curvature at the top of the arm is too long. It starts to compete with the bottom and it gets sort of balloon-like, right? It gets pillowy and balloonish, right? Drawing wise, pretty good. There's a lot of great stuff going on here. A lot of great skill, pretty darn good drawing. Just need a little bit more work on shape, but I brought you in here because I think it's pretty darn good. It's a lot of great stuff happening, so keep drawing. This is Franco's. Again, pretty good drawing. I would say, Franco, my main note to you would be in the shaping, there's areas like this leg where it's almost like two straight lines. So kind of the best of the worst shapes, right? Let me do this real fast here. The best of the worst is this. Is two straight lines, because at least you're going from wide to narrow and it feels like things are funneling down. But I'm going to try to tweak that and pick an edge that's going to be the forceful edge, right? I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to take one side and curve it out, let this maybe be my straight. That is so much better. Just, you know, I'm pixel pushing here, folks, right? And slight change is massive difference because I'm making a clear decision about what side is going to push things or not, okay? So that's the issue, I would say here, Franco, is there's a couple of areas like that where like the arm becomes a tube. It's too straight to straight. This leg is a double straight line pinching down, almost a concave, right? So small little things in there. Drawing in general, pretty good. Just need more work on shape. And you know, you're on the website, you're not up to this. And I love that you tried out. It's great. There's a lot of good stuff going on. You know, we just have more work to do, right? Okay, this one's pretty good as well. Talking about positive and negative, the arms are too long, right? Like look at the negative shape in here. This rectangle of the arm to the hand creates this nice rectangular box. I could see right away. I'm like, whoa, arms are too long, right? The shape between the legs here, you see how wide that is. Look how narrow and tall it is, right? Does everyone see that? So here, I'll draw it out. I'm looking at this. Let me make this darker. I see this box. I see this box. You see that? So in the negative shape, I abstract that to something simpler, and that helps me see very quickly as I'm drawing, right? That I want to nail that down, okay? So that's one of the things I was looking for in this contest. Also watch on the foot. Feet in general usually push over the top of the arc of the foot and then into the ball of the foot. So you don't want to push feet in like that. Anatomically, we're not built like that, right? Okay, so this one, Dimitrio's pretty good. I love the push into shape, like the clarity and simplicity of really trying to get it, but it still needs other work. I would like to have seen more form in here to try and get to this place. Some areas like the curve in the back of the arm can maybe be a little bit better. The negative spaces are a little off. Again, look at the long rectangle, look at this rectangle. So the positive to negative puzzle isn't accurate enough yet, but some good stuff going on here, you know? And you could add more anatomical shaping and still be forceful. So maybe a little bit too far on the edge of abstraction of shape design. I think I would have wanted to see maybe a little bit more truth to the silhouetting, okay? This one's pretty good as well. Yeah, some pretty good form, some good shapes, a little bit overworked on the inside, things we don't necessarily need. Some areas get a little over abstract, a little thin. One of the things that happens in form and shape is making sure that the silhouette is right and that thickness, the right thickness comes in, right? So in general, it's pretty good. I would like to have actually seen, instead of maybe phases here, like just a good one-shot drawing that's dealing with the force shapes being developed, almost more like you did in the blue, in the work to get to the black, and using soft touch to get there instead of just clearly the two phases. But it's a pretty good drawing. You got the turning edge in there too. A lot of good stuff going on in here. A little off in your negative shapes, right? But there's a lot of good stuff happening in here. Okay, in this one, negatives again are a little off. Some decent shapes going on. The leg down here gets a little funny. You see the double straight in here, right? So the shaping in the lower leg is a little awkward. Perspective's not strong enough in the back. Look at the ellipse of her top wrapping around her rib cage. It's a little weak in here, right? Like I said, negatives are a little off, but again, not bad. That's, you know, that's why I brought it in here. There's a lot of good stuff going on, okay? This is our prior winner from our first week on force. I love the way this is being created. So this just shows how drawing with the force line and using forces to develop those shapes and create those shapes finally works out so well. This would have been close to being the winner, quite honestly, except you're off in your puzzle, right? Look at the negative shape between the legs. What happened here is you straightened out this leg. Look at how far in perspective it is foreshortened. That's why the knee is not that far away from the body. So you created a more flat silhouetted profile. Same thing happened here with the arms. Notice the very long rectangle in here, right? Everyone see that? See long rectangle here, this is off, and this got just way too long. But I gotta tell you, I love the way you draw, right? And which is why you won the first week challenge, right? It's very well executed. Just watch your positive and negative shapes, okay? A lot of good stuff going on in there. This one I brought in because it's a good drawing, and I just wanted to very clearly call out, I didn't bring in other ones that did similar things, but this one's very good for what it's doing. But this is a great candidate for last week, right? It's got a lot of great form. It's not sculpted force form, but it's got a lot of great wrapping. It's very solid. It's like, damn, I could feel her rib cage move away in space. The shaping is a little over bumpy and not clear as to what your choices are on shape design. But I would say when it comes to, you know, force, there's some good stuff going on, very good form going on, extremely good form, okay? Tough thing to do too, so you're in a great place. This one, there's a lot of good stuff going on in here, but the challenge was not to over exaggerate yet, and this torso is really far pushed. This is not what she's doing anymore. We will be doing this, by the way, soon, but this is not it, not this week, right? This week is about, you know, paying attention to that puzzle, right? So here we break the puzzle. It's not the same puzzle anymore, basically, right? But again, a lot of good stuff going on. I like how it was drawn. Positive and negatives are pretty good, right? You can see the heel is too high or the knee is too low. You'll notice the heel has to go on a diagonal down. Here it's almost straight across, right? So a little bit more work on accuracy, but a lot of good stuff going on, you know? Almost done here, guys. Here's our very own Kyla's. Pretty good as well, right? Good shaping, good fluidity, pretty good form. It seems like the wrap around top is too low compared to the edge of the back. And notice the positive and negative puzzle pieces, right? So the rectangle here is too long, right? You can see the arms got way too long, right? And the shape on the legs, better. This is better. This one's pretty close, actually, right? I'd say the legs are off and the construction in the torso is a little off and the height of her top is off, like where it is on her body. But a lot of good stuff going on. I love that you put the grid on there, right? We can really feel the planting of the feet to the ground. It's good stuff happening. Okay, last but not least, I put this one in here. I love this drawing. I have to say, I really do. Really fun shape design. You can see that this artist is drawing with shape in mind. Pretty awesome. Except this artist needs more practice on making sure it's forceful shapes. So lots of little things happened here. Like the leg got into profile, like we just talked about earlier. It's too long. It's not going away in space. Part of that happens because you're not thinking enough about the form that's in the shape to develop the perspective and direction, right? Notice here, man, this is such a great opportunity to talk about, not having the double convex, right? Like there's a cantaloupe calf here, right? You want to watch that you don't create a balloon anywhere in the body. So you got all this movement shooting out, you get us down past the knee and then boom, right? We just stop dead, like right in the calf. I can't get to the foot. And then after the cantaloupe calf thing, right, all of a sudden we have a double concave or almost a straight. So too much symmetry in there. This is handled much better, but then this curve in the calf can't go into a concave into the top of the foot. You want to go straight or convex there and push out, right, to create these rhythms. So I love your boldness. I think you've got a lot going for you, I have to say. Really fun shapes. You just need more practice on getting more accustomed to the rules, what the rules actually are, but pretty darn good, really, really fun drawing and very boldly drawn, okay? All right, so that's everyone. I'm gonna save the winner for the end. Hopefully all this made sense to you. Now you'll get to watch us draw, right? We're gonna draw with 4 shapes for you. It's gonna be Swenley, then myself, and then Matunjay to close up. And then at the end of today, we will talk about who the winner is, right? And what the prize is. We got a really awesome special prize for today as well to reveal. So with that, I'm gonna hand it off to you, Swenley.
Yes, thank you, Mike. That was awesome. Sure. And thanks, of course, to everyone who participated and put in the work. Some good stuff came out. Let's see. So Mike already went through the do's and don'ts. So you want to avoid these symmetrical shapes. You want shapes that are forceful and that are able to lead energy from one place to another, because like Mike pointed out, up to last week, we were focusing on the line, right? Using the force line to lead energy from one place to another. And now force shape steps in and takes over that role. So we're still using line, but we're going to focus on force shape and use that to move energy around. So here's the reference. Let's get started. All right, let's see. So I'm going to start with the torso here. I think I want a bigger brush to begin with. So I want this curve here. And I'm drawing at a low opacity, as you can see, so I can use a bit of soft touch and don't put pressure on myself that I have to get everything perfect at the first shot. I'm just going to let the drawing evolve, as I'm going. So this is an S-curve torso, as you can see here. Got curve here, and in the reference you can clearly see the straight to curve, like Mike was pointing out. These are not things that we're not asking you guys to make things up. We're asking you guys to observe and see the reality of things. See, so when I'm drawing the center line of the back, I'm looking at the distance from there to there, and you can see it, the center line is pretty close. I'm double checking here, making sure that the curve of the back is long enough and comes low enough to match what I'm looking at in the reference. Like I can use a bit of sculpting here like we did last week to cross me over to this side. And as you can see, I'm taking my time and I keep redrawing and checking. One thing I see artists often do is they just come in with one line and, again, somehow expect themselves to get everything right with just one stroke. Let's see, I'm looking for where the top of the pelvis is here to give me some structure. And I'm going to start with the farther leg. Now, in order to place that leg, I'm thinking about the top of the pelvis, the iliac crest on the farther side. And I'm drawing through, coming down to make sure that once this line emerges right here, it makes some structural sense. I don't just want to copy it. Down here, I'm looking at the distance from the bottom of the pelvis to the knee. See how far down it comes, and it seems to be about, right. So let me resize this a bit. Okay, so I have the curve here. I'm adding the straight at the back. And here I'm going front to back. Wrapping line. Get me some form at the ankle. Can also wrap around here to show form. So this back of calf, top of the foot, I can feel all this stretching. There's a lot of stretching going on here. So I want to get that in my line. And I put a little straight here for the toe, and I'm checking the negative shape. Let's see. I'm drawing the directional force for the heel, and I can see the roundness of the heel right here. This gives you some form. I have a straight here to the front, or my curve, so I can add a straight here, and I draw the turning edge to give me the bottom plane of her foot. I can also draw a center line here to help me with the structure. And by the way, when I drew this leg, this lower leg, I was thinking about the form. I wrapped around here the ankle, but I was thinking about form all the way here. And same with the thigh. As I'm drawing that shape, I'm thinking about it. I'm not drawing it per se at this point because I can see it, but I'm thinking about the volume. So it's definitely there. Here there is a lot of compression going on. Again, I want to think about the iliac crest. And it seems that this side of the hip feels a bit higher. So I look at the negative shape right here to help me get the right distance. And this is coming in and it feels a bit too short for me. Let's see. Let's add the straight. Oops. Now what I've noticed is if I become too mechanical about measuring, things can stiffen up. So I have to find a balance between observing and just kind of feeling out the proportions, feeling out where things should land. So this front of calf, back of the heel, I can use a straight here to get me the right angle. It needs to be slightly more towards us. When it comes to angles, subtlety matters. Like a subtle change in angle can change the perception of the pose or of the action, I mean. Let's see, so I'm checking negative shape, and as you can see, this is getting a bit too wide. Like, look at the reference. It needs to be slightly closer. And this leg is actually angled more like this. So that's why it's important to start loose, so you can easily make changes. Just for clarity's sake, I'm going to erase this. And of course, if there are any questions, feel free to let us know in the chat. Let's see, so I want to make sure that the proportions still work. You can feel how force is driving through the back into that shoulder. His arms like she's pushing away at something. Okay, to bring it a little bit of anatomy, like when I draw back views, I like to include the shoulder blade, at least an abstract shape of the shoulder blade, just to help me make sure that I am attaching the arms at the right place. And for the farther arm, like I'm seeing only the part sticking out here, right? But I want to draw through and like figure out what's going on, because this is an analysis. I want to walk away with understanding, and for that I can't just copy. I need to really analyze and figure things out.
There's a question in the chats only, and who asked this? Okay, so Devin asked, like, why is the left side leg front to back? Is it purely observational?
The left side leg, Well, if I follow the directional force of the leg, again, going back to the abstraction of those arrows, when I come here, I don't feel like the arrow is pointing me here. I would say like this leg is on the edge. It's just like if I design a curve here and a straight here, it just doesn't feel like what the leg is doing for me, so it's a matter of the action, of the functionality, what's going on. So, and when you're in doubt, you can try out both options and see which one works better, which one feels like what you're looking at in the reference. Yeah, so I want to draw through and connect. I'm going to speed up a little bit here because I'm going to do another pass after this to tighten up the shapes. Let's see, so you can see the chest here, and this goes around. And let's see, this is pulling. And going around. And again, I can't see what's happening with the head and neck, but I want to figure it out. I know that the neck is an extension of the spine, and I want to think about where the neck like inserts at the bottom of the cranium. I can see the cranium sticking out here. And again, thinking about, I can use wrapping lines, right, to help me with a sense of volume. I can think about where the center line of the back of her head is. Somewhere here, like you have all this hair popping out, and I could simplify that hair into shape. This would be one way to simplify it. Of course, you can do it many ways, but I always think like if this was a drawing for an animation, of course the shapes have to be simple so they can be redrawn a couple of times. So I always think like, how would I abstract it for animation, to keep it simple and efficient. Okay, let's see. So this is my first pass. Now I'm just going to draw on another layer. I'm going to increase the opacity a bit. Let's see, I think about, this should do it. So for the second pass, I want to be as forceful as I was before, but since I have the underlying sketch underneath, I can start coming on this side and get a clear straight. So here's where I start to design a bit more and really paying attention to the shapes and making sure that they're all asymmetrical, like Mike showed you at the beginning, to keep energy moving around from one place to the next. Like even here, let me grab another color so I can maybe highlight some stuff and grab something that stands out. Like even here, for example, I'm designing the shape. Now I could have come in and create this, but I'm thinking about the foreshape, even here at the lower back. And in terms of form, I'm thinking about the turning edge of her torso. I'll do something like this. So this is the hip, and I'm going to use the design that I can see in the reference. Let's see if that works. So I really like the shaping here. And notice that I changed direction right at the turning edge. Yeah, this seems to do the job. My curve here, you start adding a straight for the knee, and especially because it's bone, I want to show the contrast between the softer upper thigh and the harder knee. Now then I can transition into another curve here. And here, let's see, I can see like the hanging. And then a straight. I want to soften this curve a bit more just to avoid that it's going to mirror the curve at the other side. Okay, so I can start shaping out the calf. A bit of the center there. And now that I'm drawing the shapes, I'm paying more attention to the distances. You know, I have this, like this corner here, I'm paying attention to the distance from here to here. Where's the distance to the ankle? Wrapping around at the ankle. So this foot is going to be a bit lower. Make sure I get the angle. You can clearly see the curve here. Then we get into a straighter moment. Add a bit of the ankle bone. I'm looking at this distance right here to see if the proportions are matching the photograph. I need a bit more of overlap from the front of the pelvis to the thigh. And this is wrapping around. There's a roundness here, then it's going back. Same here, I'm looking at the shapes. And here I want to draw a bit of the anatomy inside the thigh. help show a bit of form.
So Swanley, you've been called out on your negative shape of the arms to the body.
Negative shapes of the arm to the body?
Yeah. Here, I'll show you. Annotate right here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw that. So those are things that I fix in the second pass, you know.
Of course, damn it. So there you go, folks.
Yeah, I mean,
go around. Kind of like you did with the leg just now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like when you point out those things, like again, it's not that you have to get everything perfect from the start. You know, it's really impossible for your brain to handle all that stuff in one go. The important part is the iteration. You know, when you iterate, you have to. Then is when you have to look for these things and fix them. You know, that's the whole point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just add there's two ways of iterating, right? So one is what Swanley's talking about, which is kind of more like phases, right? So Swanley's doing a pass and then he's going to go again and, you know, keep adjusting the pass and adjusting the pass. And then the other way is even more soft touch where you're fixing in the one drawing, but man, you got to start off really light, right? Because the darker you start, the faster you get to total darkness, right? To black, and then you can't adjust anymore, right? So I'm going to try to do that on mine. So it's actually good you're doing it this way here, and I'm going to do it differently. I'll try to do what I did last week again and present you guys with a soft touch approach.
Yeah, indeed, there are different ways of doing it. You know, me working, especially since I do a lot of client work, like
yes, that's true.
It's a bit more efficient. But you know, however you do it, as long as you're doing it, like that's the important part.
Yeah.
See,
so I'm going to give you 2 more minutes, Swanley.
Okay, that's good. So this heel isn't that curve. You can see the roundness here. And it's pretty straight, so I can design the shape of the hamstring here with a straight, now just a solid. That's a solid shape here. I don't want it to be too prominent. And one thing I saw people struggle with was this deltoid. So you want to keep in mind that the deltoid attaches to the side plane of the arm. So this would be the right overlap. Now you want this curve to overlap that straight to show that, because there's the side plane, right? And the deltoid attaches right in the middle of that side plane. So you want this overlap to clarify that. You know, again, it's the idea of those puzzle pieces. Let's see, elbow sticks out here. It's quite a strong curve showing that it's really going away from us. And this turning edge is essential, you know, so you know where, when you change from the side plane to the back plane. can tone this in, start separating the different visual elements. You can see the shoulder blade like having volume and really sitting on top of that rib cage, and how I think even the trapezius, you can see the trapezius like fitting in between the shoulder blade and the deltoid. Now I notice how I'm designing the anatomy. I'm going to use a straight here again to contrast the softness of the back of the arm, of the triceps, with the harder bone of the elbow.
So the shortening of the arm there is finally happening because there's foreshortening, right? From the elbow to the wrist, all of a sudden is shorter than the shoulder to the elbow.
Yeah, indeed. So we have one, this one. When you're dealing with shape, you're also designing, right? So I have to make decisions. I would make this straight, just to contrast the curve at the back. Because once you start designing shapes, one thing that comes into play even more is clarity. You want your drawing to be clearer than the photo, in a sense. You don't want to copy the unclarities of your reference. Okay, so I have the hand and the finger sitting in here. And this arm would probably need to move because this negative shape is a bit narrow, like the fingers is almost touching the lower arm. So that's something that I see and I would fix next. Okay, I think my time is almost up now, or it's already up.
Yeah, this way Mattesi and I will each have around 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes to draw.
Okay, awesome. Let's see, let me stop the share.
All right, thank you so much, Swenley.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go next. Let's see if I can get this guy set up again the right way. I'm gonna try to hook you guys up to my other camera. All right, so let's see if that works. There we go. All right, awesome. Can you guys see that? You see my drawing surface? Swenley or Mattesi? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. Okay, let me get this guy up and going here. All right, so I picked this photograph. A little clumsy here because it's so big on the iPad, but it's the only way I can have you guys again see what I'm drawing. So based on exactly what Swenley was talking about with sort of iterating in phases, now I'm drawing traditionally. It's a little harder to do that. I'm going to try to use the soft touch like we talked about last week. The drawing, unfortunately, is probably going to be a little small because already I'm thinking of her in a box, basically, right? Like I look at the frame of her body and I'm looking up here and I'm like, oh, I'll probably have to be around here somewhere. It's like I can't really break here because the pose isn't set up like that. Or I do a little drawing here. So I'll probably try to go up here. And I'm going to try to I'm drawing with the Carandash. I think I did the same thing last time. And the reason is it's just blacker than the Lyra, which I also like drawing with. Maybe we'll do both today. So this, the first thing in getting good shape is knowing what's happening. This is actually the rare reverse S, right? So force is coming over the top of her hip like this and then pushing down into her ribs, right? So I want this kind of action happening, right? So that's what I'm going to start with. And I'm going to start gently and lightly, right? And I'm drawing forcefully, so swiftly, right? I'm drawing pretty quick, but light, right? And that's starting to develop a shape for me. right? So this is the rear end, her pelvis pushing up right there. See if I can bring this out a little bit more for you guys to see. There we go. I'll bring this over to the side a little bit more and up. There, it's better. Okay, so that's pushing up. And then I want this like hanging down. So how much hanging down? So you see I'm adjusting already. I'm like, I didn't hang her down enough. I think she's pushing down more. But I want rhythm to drive this, right? So rhythm is coming from the hip. I'm going down into her rib cage there. Her rib cage is on an angle, so I keep making adjustments, all right? I'm not getting it right immediately. I'm making adjustments, okay? All right, and then that's gonna allow me to start creating this sort of force blob, all right? It's in the books. This is kind of my straight of her lower stomach and her hips there, and then I wanna drop down into her rib cage, and like this, and you know, you can see I'm gonna start toning this in. I want you to be aware right away. I'm after this shape here, you see? All right, let's see, hopefully you guys can see that. It'll darken up soon, but this is like my beginning, right? Here it is. And her leg is on the far side. I want to think about the roundness in here, okay? I'm building up roundness. Her leg is that roundness helps me understand the pelvis and where her leg should be coming out of. Then I could check over here to see if it comes out of the right spot. This is an overlap, like an intersection. Where does the leg come out of the body? It's like in her lower stomach, right? And that ties up with the form up there. I think I'm going to do a very tight front to back on this. Kind of a tough call. I was looking at this drawing before. I'm like, do I want to go front to front or front to back? I think I'm going to do a very tight front to front. Tight meaning is not a lot of rhythm. It's almost straight down, right? But I'm going to go front to back. You know, that'll bring me to her heel over here. I want to get a sense of if this distance is right over here. Feels pretty good. Sometimes darkening finally will allow you to see the drawing well enough, but you know, so you're in this catch-22 of darkening it to see, but maybe too dark and it's wrong, right? So I'm trying to balance that out. I'm unfortunately going to crop her leg, right? You can all see that now at this point. And I already went down here. It's hard for me to draw small, quite honestly. That's why even drawing on this, I love the iPad, but sometimes pretty challenging. All right, so now I've got this leg. I know this is my force side, which means the other side's going to be my straight. So just abstract right now. I'll get the nuance of anatomy in there in a little bit, right? But there's my straight to curve, right? Look at that crazy abstract shape there. And then I'm going to go straight to curve for the other half, right? The lower leg is like this. I think I'm going to move this, guys, and put it over here just for a few minutes, just so I can get the arm in here, right? So you won't see it for a few seconds, okay? Let's get this in here. I want to feel this pulling down. I really want this fall. All right, so I'm thinking about force because I'm like, this falls down into here, okay? And then I want her spine in there. As soon as I get that in there, that starts giving me the middle, right? I'm getting the middle of her body, right? That gives me immediate form. It's an anatomical thing. It gives me immediate form, right? I've got her shoulder. I want to get her foot to her hand relationship correct. So that kind of already makes me aware that I'm going to have to land down here somewhere. So I've got here, I got where I have to go. I've got the shoulder. I'm going to go from the deltoid. Deltoid's the way out of the body. The arm sweeps back and then very strong angle down. Right, and then her hand is like planted down here. You know, usually we don't talk about other artists on this, but ironically, like just before our session today, I was looking at Instagram and Loish was on there and she was doing a video and the video was showing her like drawing very lightly and kind of building up, right? So she's basically doing what I'm doing right here, right now. And her post though said something like, hey, who of you draws like I do, where I have to like build it up? And she kind of tried to equate it a little bit more to fear to boldness, you know, like who's more scared and draws like I'm drawing. You know, this is Loish talking, of course, which is kind of funny in itself, but meaning, you know, just how good she is at what she does, right? Yet, you know, my point to this is it doesn't have to be, it could be that it's about fear. I would agree with her actually 100% there. could be fear. But I have nothing against when you're learning how to draw light first, right? So if you got this light range to dark range going, again, I think it's really important that you're here. The learning happens here, guys. Okay, keep this in mind. If you're someone who's being taught by your teacher or something like, hey, draw bold, you got to get the line, like learn it fast. You know what? I can guarantee you can go there. It's going to take you a lot longer to learn. All right, start here and build your way to this. Light and fast, then dark and slower, right? So light and fast, this way you feel force, you're moving around, you can really make your adjustments and discover and roam. You know, you want to have the ability to like travel around, you know, and figure things out, right? And especially with force, I think it's even more important because if I draw lightly and then build up, I can really feel the power pushing into moments in the body, okay? So believe it or not, this is a shape drawing. It looks almost somewhat traditional. It's not maybe as graphic as what Swenley did, right? But it's still a shape drawing. I want you to be aware that I'm still aware of what the silhouette is. You know, I'm very aware of the silhouette, and it can be super designed. You know, almost like a Bruce Timm drawing, right? Like a cartoon drawing, or not, right? But that's up to you, you know. What's important is if you know what the forces are, then if you know what the forces are and you know what the force shapes are, well, then you have the opportunity to create clearer drawings, you know, and that's really important. That's really the guts of, I think, drawing with force shape is being able to see that, you know. Shape to me is like the ultimate clarifier. You know, it doesn't allow for muddiness in the end, you know. Muddiness in the beginning is okay, like we just talked about. I think first draw with softness, feel out the forms, feel out the shapes, allow force to develop the shape, right? Allow it to develop over time, right? But don't rush into just a straight black, you know, a black line immediately. It's fine to get there. I have nothing against bold lines, okay? Again, just to be clear. I'm talking about knowing where you are in your travels, you know, to become a good drawer, right? What does that mean, a good drawer? I guess somebody who's got the traditional skills down, right? That's what I mean. Okay. So even her head is, of course, shaped out. Looks like it's slightly looking away from me. Slightly seeing the back over here. And there was many comments actually on the forum about positive negative space, right? So it's really powerful to go, and once you start darkening in those lines, like there's the shoulder, there's the neck, there's the chin, right? That makes this, right? I see that shape then very clearly in the end, right? Like I can start seeing this. You know, how's the negative doing over here? You know, is that working well? The negative in turn will help you see again the positive, right? So you want to try to do those things in tandem. I know it's a lot. I think a couple of you said this on the forum as well, and I agree with you 100%. There is a lot of stuff to track, right? A lot of stuff to track. But that's why, like I said, start light, build up so you can go through all those different phases of all the things that you need to think about and learn, right? And you can actually keep doing them by going lightly and then softly. So here's the photograph again, right? And, you know, this got me to this particular drawing, right? All right, let's try another one. Let's turn this guy vertical now. Some photographs, you know, some references, the shaping is much easier to see than others, right? So here, this is vertical, so I should be able to squeeze it in here. You know, look at this. I grabbed this image on purpose, right? Because look at that line, right? Everyone see that line? It's like, man, that looks like I could put a ruler up against it. It's so darn straight along the front of the chest, right? You see here? It's tiny little bumps of anatomy across it. There's perspective in one pectoralis versus the other in the angle. But look, it's a straight line. That's great, right? Like that's going to help me with the design. I'm like, okay, that's straight. There's my curve. Look at the curve on the back. It's giant arc, right, against that straight line. Are they all like this? No. Usually it's a lot harder than this, right? But in this case, because I'm looking for shape, I'm like, damn, he gave it to me, right? There it is. Now, what I do have to figure out, and I don't have the answer to this, quite honestly, maybe we'll do a couple of sketches of the torso, is to figure out, well, what happens after that? Is this a C torso? Am I just going to arc strongly here, weaken the arc down there, come around, push a little bit into the crotch, and you can just put a straight line? Maybe, I don't know. It's definitely, he's definitely bending towards me. How do I know that? Because one shoulder is higher and the other one's much lower. So he's like this, right? He's like, here, this is his body, right? He's going like that, right? Here's the shoulder and the other one, he's tilting towards me, right? So I see that, that'll be my form. I've got to make sure I get that top plane of his torso inside that straight to curve shape. It almost looks like an abstract painting to me, right? So I have to figure out what the rest of it's doing. So I'll draw a couple of, let's do some torsos up here, right? So I love that straight, right? He's like this, and it's like this, right? You see, this is the shape, right? Right, so we have that. That's cool. The question is like, what do I do down here? It seems like I just might just do this. I'm going to say maybe he's just a C torso. I can close off along the bottom, right? Like so. I just got to be aware of this flat shape has a ton of perspective, right? Like his one shoulder is over here. Can everyone see that? Yeah. So one shoulder is there, the other shoulder is here, right? So there's this whole perspective plane on the top. And if I were to draw a center through that, right? Like I have to center out his chest. One was pushing out, one is further back. And there's a very strong perspective angle, which is this one, right? Cutting across all this. And that's why, you know, there's wrinkling, hanging, you know, happening all down here, right? All these darn wrinkles, right? Sitting between the rib cage and the pelvis, you see? So that would be one option. I do think this is the winner. Let's just try another one, right? Here, I'll try to do another one right here. So another one might be, see if I can get an S in here. So I've got this versus this curve, right? Do I come out like this? Here's my curves, and maybe I do this, right? And I straighten out on the back. So I go from here around the wrinkles, come out to the pelvis like this, and kind of straighten out over here. That's not actually too bad, right? I got the shoulders like we talked about. I got the center, got the perspective, right? The question is, the difference between these is what's going on here. In the C, I am saying that he's bending forward. He's bending this way enough to say, you know what, I think this curve is pushing out. If I do the S, let me grab a different color here. If I do the S and I go from the back to the stomach, then I'm saying that this is a straight line. Okay, right in there. If I look at him, I think he is actually slightly bowing out. Enough, I think, for me to go here. I think I'm going to stay with the C, actually, in this case. Right, so let's just do it. Let's see if I can actually fit this drawing on the page. I'll do my best. I'll try to start really big and light, just so I get the whole thing down, right? Like his head's here. Well, we might make it. We might actually make it. Let's see, this is here. So weird, I'm like so aware of my pinky today. I'm like, am I doing this? Am I doing this? Like sometimes I put it far out like that because it gives me a wider base. Sometimes I'm just doing this because it's hanging out, not doing anything. It's like, what does this thing want to do? Very weird.
It's like Queen Elizabeth is drawing, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Let me see if I can put a cup of tea on there, you know, and hang it off my pinky or something, you know. So this is proper force drawing, everyone. This is the proper version. We'll do the ghetto version later. Those of you that have gone to etiquette school. Otherwise, leave and come back later. We'll be here for the alleyway version of force. Right. Yeah. All right. So you can see I'm drawing the shape. I'm forming things out. All right. Just trying to get this right. Here's my shape. So good to tone it in. Right. You can see how I'm starting. I've already got some form in there. I've got shape in there. I kind of already squeezed my way out of the arm. I just couldn't help myself because really I should be doing the legs, but I love this crazy little like hook thing he's doing. It's so weird, right? I've got some form in here to help me with the wrinkling later. All right, I've got the leg here. Let's get down the leg. What am I gonna do with this leg? This leg I think is a front to front. All right, front to front. Why did I pick that? Some people would say, well, that's a front to back. No, it's not. Like, look, it's all the tension on this leg is really one giant arc all the way down to the back of the heel. Just because you have this view of the leg does not mean it's front to back. It's a very strong arc, like a bent bar holding up his upper body that's hanging on the outside of that leg. So all this tension is here, dropping down with gravity, and this arc is supporting all that stress. So you got this arc against this arc, right? And it's coming into that C torso, which I think again is then the right choice because of how much tension is happening back here. Right. So if I were to arc this, I'm just going to draw this quickly. I'm going to say it's something like this, right? Here's my like rough of it. The other leg is tricky. It's like, do I go front to back or front to front? I think I'm going to go front to front there as well. Why? Because here he's on the front and he's kind of hanging his calf down to the ball of his feet. It doesn't really feel like there's enough of an arc going on the back to drive me down. It feels like, you know, again, it's like a bent metal bar with like a weight attached to it, and it's flexible like a metal ruler, and it would just bend that way, right? I want to watch, you know, I'm aware that one knee is there, the other knee, I'm always aware of like the knees relative to another. So I'm showing you what I think. Like I usually then I'm aware of that space. I notice that this leg starts very close to the edge of the other one because he's turning his hip. Right, so I want this to go from here all the way down here. Look how crudely I'm drawing, right? Like I'm aware of that. I want you guys to be aware. I'm aware. Look how simple what I'm doing is, right? But this is how it starts, right? Start off really simple. I've got his shoulder over here, right? I know that his elbow has to get me to the edge near his butt. So I'm going to go from the front of the shoulder to the back of the arm, okay? And then not such a hot photo here in that it almost tangents the edge of the arm and the leg. You know, not too happy about that, but I picked this because I wanted you guys to see really this whole issue with the torso, right? So his wrist is about here. So there's my rhythm. I've got this force shape. Now I feel like I could start shaping other things out, right? I love that strong straight in there, man. It's so awesome, right? Maybe a little bit of the structure in there, right? Get his pectoralis sitting in there. Right. So where do I want to go? Let's go to the legs. Let's try shaping them out a little bit more. This is my curve. I'm going to get his knee in there, right? The straight starts revealing itself behind the other leg like that. And then again, I'm going to go with a curve down, right? Like this. Now it curves and kind of pushes in a little bit. I can do that. You know, that's fine. You can see it curves out and then dips in. Then we've got, this is a very, very important overlap. The calf muscles on the back and it comes in, right? And then it starts to really straighten out. So this one I'm going to straighten out and push in. I'm going to go for a very, very straight line on the back, right? And then we've got the heel, the foot, and the ball of the foot, right? I'm not going to spend too much time on the details there, but I want you to see the general shape. Got the ankle in there. So this is what I created, right? Got the other leg. All right, so we come off of his pelvis here. Got his other leg sweeping down. All right, other knee. His leg here, his butt sitting out about right there. This is pretty straight. This is going to become a big mess with the Carandash, but because the arm is there, the leg is there, and I'm doing a lot of drawing. This sweeps over here. Again, what's behind? Important overlap, anatomical overlap. I'm paying attention to the apex of the calf there. It kind of comes up and it's almost like a straight line down, right? Very graphic, right? And then that would take me down to the foot and here's his heel, right? Like sweeping down over there. Let's see, let's deal with this arm. Here's the collarbone that gets me to the shoulder. So I've got the deltoid in the front. I'm going to push the straightness of it in the back. Notice the curve of the anatomy, right? And then we're going to have the tricep and the arm versus a very sort of languid bicep. This is still my curve of force on the back of the arm, everyone. right? And I get to the elbow, and then my curve of force on the outside of the arm. I'm going to have a curve and a straight on the inside, like so. So here's my shape for the upper arm, shape for the lower arm, right? And then I break at the wrist, right? And then we would have his hand over here, which I'm having a hard time seeing with the light. Now, hands, like we talked about positive, negative space in my story about the chairs. If you don't know how to draw hands yet, just try to block out the general shape of it. It doesn't have to be all knuckled and anatomical. Just look at it in general. You know, it's like, well, it's going this way, right? I could see there's a shape here for his thumb. There's like a shape of his hand, and maybe just a general shape for his fingers. You see, even if you get this down, that at least gives you something, right? You have the beginning of a hand, you see? And it's generic, but it's a shape. It's where you start, right? It's what we call the mitten, right? All right, this all viewable? Yeah, it looks like you guys can see this clearly. All right, now we get to this arm. Love this arm, right? I'm gonna push in a little bit here. This is my force side. I know that this is what I want, right? And then he's got this angle on his elbow. All right, pretty cool. I come over here, I can angularize the deltoid a little more. I know it's my curve, but I can see there's a top, a side, and a bottom. And I think I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna get a little bit more detailed there, like that. And then his deltoid wraps around that, and his bicep kind of bulges out behind there. And now I've got his forearm. So this is my force side of it. I'm gonna push more of a straight here, and then more bulbousness at the bottom. Goes like this. So notice my shaping. Right? And with the hand again, don't be intimidated. You know, if you don't want to think hand, think shape. Right? It's like, well, the shape's like this. There's a little thing sticking out of it there. It goes like this. It kind of wraps around like this. It has a little hook in it like this, right? And then there's a little curve in there like that. So there's the shape of it. See, pretty good, right? Actually looks like a hand. And I didn't have to go, oh my God, I'm drawing a hand, right? So there it is, right? Same with his head. So something that comes up often is like, I can't get the head on the body right. There's force, of course, in it, and that's usually from the back to the neck, right? That's the rhythms of what he's doing. We're coming from his spine and then sweeping up his face, okay? So it's like over the mountain and then up the front, right? But shape-wise, I can just say, look, again, I don't have to even get too crazy, just like with the hand. Think about the shapes. I see there's a line there. I see the edge of it is here. Why? Because I'm looking at the shape within the shape. Here, I'll grab blue. I look at the edge of the chin compared to the edge of his chest. I look at this shape. You see, there's that shape in there. That's me measuring, right? And I'm doing it with shape instead of doing this whole thing, right? Like I don't want to do this. This takes forever, right? So I'm just shaping it out, right? So look at like the shape of his head. I look at the shape of the bottom half of the head. That's shape number one. And shape number two is how far does his head go beyond the edge of his back? I can kind of look through him as if his head was invisible and kind of connect the line on that side to the line on that side and go, yeah, that shape looks pretty good, right? That looks pretty good, right? And then he's got his hair bobbling back here, right? So he's like that. And then I can put in lines of perspective and say his eye line is like this, his nose. Even if I didn't know perspective and I could see shape relatively well, I might be lucky enough, if I'm clear in my vision enough, I might be able to get it. Most of the time, the problem is people are not, I have to tell you. And that's why we learn the perspective stuff, is so you actually learn how to see what's going on better. But man, shape could take you pretty far, you know? So there I am, I'm just blocking it out. Here's like the shape of his hair, right? You can see it sweeps in like this, it sweeps out. We've got his ear over here, right? And I just shaped it out. Now I know that those shapes are what they are because of perspective. So that's my cheat, right? I know what the perspective is here. It makes it easier for me to actually see the shapes of his face, okay? Right? So he's got his shoulder blade is sticking out, right? We're over here. And I think finally I get this payoff of, hey guys, let's not forget the 5,000 little wrinkles that are sitting in here with the zero body fat body. right? Just little wrinkles of skin sitting here. He's got his shorts on. Notice one is higher, one is lower. That's no accident. That's perspective, right? Something to be aware of. Again, most people might not notice that, right? But we know our perspective, so we notice the height difference, right? It's because one foot's further away than the other one, his hip's further away. So there's my drawing, right? Pretty simple. It's not hyper detailed. It's not like what we did last week with all the sculpting line, right? Lots of sculpting, but it's shape driven. It's really clear. Honestly, I could probably do this in more like a minute and a half versus how long it took, but I'm talking my way through it and making sure you understand, okay? All right, I think I'm gonna stop there. So Rotunje's got a good amount of time to do his drawing, and then we still have to reveal our winner, all right? Thanks guys for watching, and let's hand it off, all right?
All right, let's do this. Can you see it right now?
Yes, now you're on.
Oh, okay. All right, so here's my photograph. Very dynamic, by the way. So a specific reason, again, you cannot see like this photo is very, very interesting because you cannot see like a massive curve just like this, okay, and like versus a straight, just like what Mike did with his photograph. You know, you can really like, yeah, compare it with a ruler. It's just like, oh, it's just straight, and look at the massive back here. This shape is more like subtle shape, okay, but it's still like very, very forceful. So here we gotta find it, okay, like find the shape first of all, like what's actually happening here. So the way I actually start with is just like what we did in the rhythmic sessions, just like making quick gestures. So what's my like first reaction to it, okay? So if I have to do it, I'd be just like going like this. Okay, I just like want that, that lead. Okay, that the force, that force hitting here in that shoulder section. Okay, so that gives me a starting point. I was like, okay, that this side on the model feels more curved to me. Okay, than this side. Okay, so I decided to go with that. So here's would be my straight, here would be my, sorry, here would be my curve, here would be my straight, okay? So it gives me this kind of overall shape design, okay? So here you can see, just like that, right? So yeah, my starting point. So I'm gonna bump this up, bump this down, and keep it here just for the sake of guide, okay? So let's start with it. So obviously I'm gonna start with that curve here, okay? I'm not gonna make it like super aggressive curve, okay, that something like this or like that. But yeah, let's start with that, hitting into the lead here, like that edge of the shoulder, and then like coming straight like that, okay? So here I want to keep the rhythms going. I'm also looking at the angle of the torso. It's like, oh, look at the angle here, right? Just like that. So yeah, focusing on that. Something like this. Now I'm making it, I know I'm like making it too dark, but you know, that doesn't matter. I can just like lighten up like that. So I just like want that dynamic angle to just fill my pose with energy, okay, like fill my drawing with energy. So here we go, that's the angle. Right now I'm not designing too much. I'm just like focusing on the function and trying to build off some shapes, like the main shapes, okay. This overall silhouette of the figure, okay, I will tell you in the end. I'll just like tone the whole figure in, and I'll just like, okay, the biggest shapes that you can see first of all from a hierarchical standpoint is the whole figure, the silhouette of the whole figure, okay. So right now I'm just like focusing on the big shapes first of all, and then I'm just gonna break it down like one by one, okay, priority wise. So the biggest shape, so the biggest shape here I can see obviously is the torso, sorry. And I'm gonna move on, okay. So here we are moving on like this, okay. I'm gonna erase this so you can see the photograph very clearly. Now you see like what's happening. Okay, so it's we want to keep the fluidity going. Okay, so here we go. You see this leg here, like how it's happening. This leg is it's not very tricky, okay, but you can see like the curve is here, curve of force is here, and I don't want to cross this. I don't want to cross, go over the leg and going to the other side. I just like that one continuous curve. You can see like now he's like right pushing into that heel there. So sometimes you just have to imagine the pose from another angle. So if you're facing problem with such kind of things, you can just imagine it maybe. Okay, so if you see this leg, imagine it in your mind. If you see this leg from another view, let's say this side, okay, like more of a profile shot from right hand side. So this leg would be doing something like this. Okay, so yeah, now you can see that, oh, he's pushing into the heel right there. Okay, so from this angle here, okay, from this angle, I would really be going from here, okay, and there's just like one curve of force. So let's do that in our drawing as well. Okay, now here, look, that the upper thigh is like really foreshortened, so I really want to like commit my ideas to that. Okay, so I was like, okay, just look at that to where it's ending. Okay, so it's ending right there, you know, as you can see. So as you can see, I'm making it long here when I'm drawing the initial curve of the force, but I'm just gonna keep it around here. So um, let's see, right there, right there where I want it to end. Okay, so okay, still not too much onto the shapes yet, but first of all, figuring out the function of it, right? So this is something that I would end up with, right? For the other one, um, you can it's a really outside inside outside thing. Okay, it's not very tricky. You can see the almost the perfect back, or is it like the perfect back? Yeah, it's like the perfect back of the back view of the leg. So the back view of the leg, it's outside inside outside, like no brainer kind of thing. Okay, so you can see like the initial curve of the thighs there, and then the inside knee and how it's hitting outside there. Okay, so that's one thing here. So this is my idea, right? uh, Now let's do another quick one, and this time like really focusing on shape here. So I'm just gonna do it really quickly. That was just to explain you. Okay, all right, so let's go. Really want that angle, the straighten here. The foreshortened thighs, um, like that, making it smaller. As usual, I always end up drawing very, very big, something like that, you know. So that's my curve. Now look here. This is just normal. We can talk about this later on when we want to shaping things out. Now see here, like what's happening into the neck there. So the back is here. Okay, so the back is actually filming to the neck. Okay, and there I also want to create like a forceful shape. This is the mistake students do the most, is they create a shape like this for the neck, right? It's more like this. And again, as we discussed, that's a symmetrical shape. Okay, you don't want like two concaves like to push into one another to create a symmetrical shape, and they just like put a head in here. So that's really not forceful. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the solution, how we're going to do it. So let's get into shapes. Okay, let's make it more specific, like how I would shape things out. So here, this is what I don't do like most of the time. I just like want to stay fluid, but here, since we're designing shapes, you're doing into like design theory kind of thing. So I would like to use some straights, okay, just to give it more interest. Okay, so as you can see, it's like it's not very fluid. I mean, it's not very rounded. So just want to put some straights in there. Okay. Again, want to stay with the big ideas. Obviously, that's the big. That's a curve. Okay. I want to design like his like butt a little bit. So that's like kind of a more shapy kind of butt. uh, Here we go with the spine here. Coming off from the shoulders right here, as you can see. Look at this very negative, a little negative space here. That triangle that's just right here. Okay, so that's a small negative space, but that's like very very important here. Okay, that presents us clarity that okay, the hand is going from here up above and not here. Okay, if it would be going here, then we won't see this negative space here. So well, that's the clarity of the pose. So I really want to get that here, um, that negative space, a little bit negative space, and then yeah, just not, I'm not gonna go with the bumps and all those kind of things. I just like really wanna focus my ideas onto the shapes right now. Okay, so something like that. Oh, let's go with the legs. Okay, let's go with the legs. How they are looking at. So again, massive curve here, mm, and
Hey,
massive
you got
curve.
you got a
Uh,
sticker from Jabo's Creations.
hey,
You got
the lemon head.
Lemonhead. Yes, Lemonhead with a cape. I think he's saying you're doing super job.
Thank you, Jabez. Jabez
That's
comments
cool.
are always like so inspiring for me on Instagram as well. So big shout out to you.
Yeah, a Tunde supporter.
Here I just did it, but look here. The honest thing, this leg would be doing is something like this. Okay, so you can see the curve is here on the opposite side, on this side, the outside side, and obviously that would be a straight. Here, we're just like adding that calf muscle onto the top. It's same like what we are doing in the hand sometimes. So the rhythm in the hand is like this, and we are just adding the deltoid on top of it. It's not the bunny hopping that we are talking about, but it's an add-on to it. So the same thing we're doing here. We are just going straight like this, but we are adding like the calf muscle on top of it, so we can stay like accurate to the anatomy as well. So that two lines gave me a little bit form that the leg is coming out while going first going in, then coming out. Um, I messed up with the buttocks a little bit, so let me fix that. There we go. Yeah, now it's good. Um, so with this leg, it's that outside inside outside curve we talked about. So um, keeping that same idea, you can see how again I just created some instincts over there, like focus on there, and now focusing on shapes, like creating shapes there. So for this curve, this is a straight here. For this curve, again, I'm pushing a straight in here. Maybe some again, like two lines or one or two lines just to create the form out of that. And I'm gonna shift it a little bit here so I can tell you about this leg here as well. So again, that's the curve on the outside. So as the rule suggests, that would be straight from inside. Again, we are adding on top of that, we are adding the calf muscle. Okay, so something like that. Well, with the feet, it's simple. So not really focusing on that. I just like want to balance it out. That's why I'm making that. Okay, something like that. Um, yeah, and yeah. Now with the neck. Now, what's happening with the neck here? You see here, I'm also like designing. I'm trying to like design the neck connection. I don't want to like do this. That's like a very very non-forceful, and trying to like design his head with shape as well. Okay, so something like this. You know, I'm just like designing more. Yeah, more for like straight, not with the curves. And still trying to keep the shape alive. So sometimes let's say if here's a curve, that would be my straight here. The bun, I'm also designing the bun there. So it's not just like the bunch of like hairs. It's just like, okay, I'm looking at the overall shape. So overall curve and a straight here. So yeah, that's also forceful. That's something you can do. You can see our stream on references, like how to use references, and those kind of things that we talked about. That this is references. We're not like copying the model. Okay, so you can push your own design theories in here and whatever you wanted. Okay, maybe some. How much time we got?
About 5 minutes.
Okay. Look at the muscles here. How the trapezius is like doing its job when he's like under pressure. I'm also designing that. You see here. This becomes. Let me grab another color here. So this becomes my curve. Okay, that becomes my curve here. This becomes my straight. So again, curve to the straight design, straight to the curve design, whatever you want to call it. That's a forceful shape. Okay, so you can see like I'm just injecting a like lot of like a lot of shapes in here. Okay, I'm still not happy with the butt. Let's design it again. That's good. Okay, so and let's give it like a little bit form. Okay, because that's coming out. Okay, so yeah, like overall form, so it's like coming out. So let's do some breakdown of that. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it here. I'm just gonna choose like different colors and point it out how many not exactly how many shapes we use, but let's see like the big shapes that we used. Okay, so you see here we started with the big body shape, which is a curve in here and a straight in here. But when I put the spine in here, okay, that divides that torso into two shapes, but they are still forceful individually. Okay, so you see this whole shape. Let me take another layer, keep it on multiply. Okay, so you see this okay, yeah, you see this whole shape that we started with. This is my original shape. Okay, now let's grab another color, like a dark one. Okay, and now look, here's the individual shape that we were talking about. This is also a straight to the curve. Now you'll see, oh, these are both curves, but look here what's happening. Another brush. Okay, so this would be my curve for this, just this shape. Okay, I'm just like talking about this number one here, but the spine is more like a straight to it. Okay, so this is like more dominant over that. Okay, so again, gives me my more straight to curve design. Here's my second shape. You can still see here. We can tone that in with a different color. Okay, that's again my straight to curve. Look here. This is my straight to curve again. Okay, so the curves on the butts there, but kind of like this straight moment up on his thighs that creates again the curve to the straight moment. Again with the thighs, we got another one. So look at this. I know there's like also a curve in here, but we started as initial as a curve, but then I put a straight, but put a hamstring on top of it, just like an add-on, just like we put the calf muscle. So that's also a forceful shape. What other colors to choose? I mean, this is, as you can see, the initial we talked about this. That's another forceful shape. Here's another one. I'm running out of colors now. Okay, let's say green. Okay, here's another one. Okay, that's the straight to curve of the knee. Let's choose a more pinkish, magenta kind of thing. So here's one. Also, here's one. Here's again another one, and here's also. So you see, like it's full of shapes, and we have still not finished yet. This is, again, this is one of the shapes. This is one of the shapes. So full of color figure drawing right here. So obviously we have to announce the winner, I guess. So
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah. So, and I will end this and host it over to Mike. Right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Stop share. Okay, let's go.
All right. All right, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's Force Friday. We now know that we have to create Force alumni pinky rings. This is the giant conversation that was going on, Mrityunjay. So yeah, I'll get on that. Yeah, so thank you guys. Thank you, Swenli and Mrityunjay. I hope that you guys leave today understanding that shape is really important. We started off today with positive and negative shape, right? And how important that is in itself. And that was great. It seemed like reading through the chat, that was a big epiphany to all of you. You know, negative is as important as positive, right? It doesn't have, negative doesn't have to be a forceful shape that's almost impossible, right? Not impossible, but pretty impossible. The goal is to make sure that the body has the forceful shapes. We talked about different ways of working today, right? We talked about soft touch within the drawing, which I did. We talked with Swenli about working in phases, right? If you're working digitally, or what used to be working with tracing paper, right? Layers on top of layers to keep like manipulating your work to get it to where you want it to, right? And then we had also Mrityunjay showing you just how simple he started and how that built up to, you know, I think that drawing that he had in the end. So let's get to our winner, right? Drum roll. Our winner for today, the best shape drawing that we received this past week goes to our very own Arno. So Mrityunjay, you want to, I mean, not Mrityunjay, Swenli, you want to tell us what the prize is?
Yes, Arno, your drawing is awesome. And because of that, you won one free mentorship session with me. So
yeah.
1 hour.
Thank you, Swenli. So awesome, right? So, so Arno, when you're ready, I would say just, you can email me or Swenli. I think Swenli, your email is also just swenli@drawingforce.com, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Yep, so they could just email, you know, Arno, you could just email Swenli there, or we'll check in with you, either or. Yeah, and you get a free session to talk more about shape with Swenli himself, the shape master. So that's it, guys. Yeah, so thank you very much. We'll see you guys on Monday again for the last week of Force February, right? So we'll have our last challenge. There were some questions of some new people who came in that were like, hey, how do I get involved in the challenges? If you look at the description for any of the videos and the live events, you will see Instagram accounts, mine, Mrityunjay's and Swenli's. You can go to any one of them. We all post the contest and the hashtag for the contest. So yeah, so I would say just check us out over there, right? So thank you everyone for coming. It was quite a pleasure as always talking to you guys in the chat, working with Swenli and Mrityunjay, and having the opportunity to draw for you. Next week, like I said, will be the last one. We have a fun challenge to close up February with, and we will all see you then. Take care, guys. Goodbye.
Yes, thank you guys. Bye-bye.